mean, musicians should play for free. Okay.
How are they expected to live?
Right. That's
ridiculous.
why there's no more bands in Italy. Only three.
I see. They couldn't survive. They weren't earning a living.
Because they were saying, oh, you make a lot of money with records, so you should play your concert live. But the the Italian market is very small. It's like 40 times smaller than America, and there's a lot of competition with other, bad music, and so everything went down. A third fact was that musicians kept on wanting to get better and more progressive, and so they kind of got away from the audience. Like if somebody would start playing Genesis and doing that classical type of thing, then later on would get into rock jazz, and then later on would get into research, and by this time people won't listen to to strange sounds like this is research music, this contemporary. But people go to buy disco because they have more fun. So somehow, I think this is.
It was interesting when I first got into progressive music. Italy was the first country that I found outside of England where there was dozens and dozens of albums by dozens and dozens of bands.
Right.
Now, how did they get to sign with record labels, and why did it get so predominant and then sink?
So prolific. Yeah.
All right. See, the record companies never allowed bands to work on their own material, as I said before. And the first 3 bands that did it made it. So record companies just changed their policy right away, and they were signing everybody. Also because the band was very cheap to work with, because they were playing all their own stuff. They were bringing all their own equipment in studio, so it was much easier to sign a band, a progressive band, than signing a solo artist. In fact, in that time, all the solo singers, performers in Italy went all down. All bands were up, okay? Because you could, like for Aquafragile, the band I used to be in, the album was very cheap for the record company because we would play in it. They didn't have to hire any musicians. And we wouldn't get any money for it, That's why they all got into it, and they blew it because there were so many bands, so many records and albums.
They signed
everybody
way
did.
too many, and it just sort
right.
of got too heavy, went over like a balloon.
Yes.
You mentioned that it was the politics of Italy that seemed to stifle the creativity of musicians. They couldn't play their own music and so on. When they did begin to play original music, was there politics in the music itself? In other words, were the musicians of a political nature? Were they doing political songs? And
Well, I'm talking about politics. I'm talking mostly about parties or organization out of what a parliament. I mean, very leftish and very small organization, but very strong in the big cities, like Milan or Rome or Turin or Bologna. Okay. This is very difficult, to explain.
I'm sure our audience is interested.
But okay, like they found out that a lot of young people would go to concerts. They would gather together, okay, to see these bands. So they used this type of thing to reach with ideas the young generation. And I can tell, because I've been in it, musicians believed that we were going to change something. Like, we play for those concerts, we play for free. Hey, man, it's going to be great because we're going to build up a new world. It's like after Woodstock, after 1968, new seeds plant, in the earth, and it would come out new plants. But it didn't work out because the political organization were not interested in music. They don't like music. Or what they're interested is in getting the people. So even inside of them grew even stronger and violent people. There's like what we call autonomy. Autonomy. They don't want any political organization. They just want to be on their own. Very anarchy type, anarchy. Okay, but so like they would gather together at concerts, and who's playing tonight? Oh, this guy. Okay, let's break in. And so promoters would stop having concerts because they had to pay more for the broken windows and burned out things than
revolutionary.
Yeah. And a lot grew up on the misunderstanding that in America a lot of bands were playing for free, which is true. Like that you had like Jefferson Airplane and the guy, but they were playing for free because the manager was paying to organize these things.
Right.
You know, the bands were making money.
It was good publicity.
Right, it was publicity. And still people believe that in America these bands are, you know, are so far out. They never touch any money. They just on the road, you know, every time they play and eat sandwiches and sleep on the street. They don't realize, because we can't forget that progressive music is very expensive to deal with, to perform, to write. You know, you have to buy every instrument that comes out, every guitar, every drum kit, and your live shows when it's so difficult. You have to hire a lot of roadies to work with. It's not just playing rock and roll where you just go on the vibes and create and loud. If you think, you know, most of the progressive bands, they have like a mellotron, which is so delicate an instrument, and a lot of bands had to stop dealing with it because it breaks down every night. So it's very complicated.
You also mentioned when we were speaking earlier that there's no musicians union in Italy, and there's no places for anybody to rent equipment.
Right.
That seems very interesting.
Somehow people believe that Italy is a land of music, a land of
there's so many
singing,
bands.
okay? But it's not true. Music is not important. In fact, there's no union, and there's no, if you want to play a big concert, you want to rent some kind of equipment, but good equipment. I mean, not lousy PA. Good equipment, you can't. They don't have it.
So you have to own everything
you have to buy everything you're using. And since you're buying most of the stuff from England or from America, you should have English and American people to work with it. And it builds up a lot of confusion, a lot of problems. Like I remember touring England with PFM on Sunday. Like we had problems with one of the guitars broke down, the neck, which was broken, and another problem we called on Sundays, and there was